Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, and all sorts of good things. And joining us today is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, you know, after yesterday's first contact day and all the Star Trek information that dropped, I found myself in a state of great depression. But being on your show, it puts a smile on my face.
A state of great depression. I thought you would be happy about a bunch of the stuff that came out yesterday. Not so much. Not so much.
No, well, I want to be. I want to be, John. You know me. I want to love everything.
Well, we are going to be talking about some of that Star Trek stuff that came out. We're also going to be talking about this new show, Minx, that we've had our eye on for about a year. Yeah. We're also going to talk about some new news regarding Guardians of the Galaxy and all sorts of good things. But here's how today's show is going to go, guys. We are going to take the first half of the show and address a bunch of predetermined topics that you guys have sent in. And then we're going to take the second half of the show and take your live comments and questions. But let's not waste any time here today, guys, and let's get right into our main topics here today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big story, topic, or issue that you think we should have as a main topic here in the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if you're lucky, because we get a lot of these questions do sent in. But fill out a form. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see that submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Maximus Jones, who writes, "Hey, John, I remember about a year ago that you and Aaron were talking about a new show HBO Max was going to be making about a 1970s porn mag for women called Minx. Then we never really heard anything from it again until today. I read that New Girl's Jake Johnson and Ophelia Lovibond from Guardians of the Galaxy will star in it. What do you think about the casting, and are you interested in the show? Thanks." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, I remember this. It was about a year or so ago that me, Aaron, and Chris Carr were talking about that HBO Max had ordered a pilot of the show called Minx. Now, the basic idea that we understood at the time was going to be, it was going to focus around a 1970s porn magazine that was made for women. And I can't remember if it's a true story or not. I simply don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But ever since that time, there was then no information about it, and we never heard about it again until, you're right, yesterday, when news did come out that they already did do the pilot. HBO Max loved it, and they've ordered it to series. This comes to us from Variety, who writes, "The streamer has given the 10-show episode order for Minx, set in 1970s Los Angeles. Minx focuses on around an earnest young feminist, played by Ophelia Lovibond, who joins forces with a low-rent publisher, played by Jake Johnson. And by the way, I love Jake Johnson, to create the first erotic magazine for women. Ellen Rappaport created the series and will serve as executive producer and showrunner. Paul Feig and Dan Magnet, will executive produce. I'm so grateful to Feige Co., Lionsgate, and HBO Max for seeing the potential in this story from the first time I showed up in their offices with a stack of 1970s porn magazines," Rappaport said. "Making Minx with our ridiculously talented cast was a dream." She's talking about the pilot. "It was a dream come true, and I'm just thrilled that I get to do it again." And of course, that comes from Ellen Rappaport, creator and showrunner of the new show, Minx. I got to tell you, Rob, I really do like the sounds of the show. It just takes, because James Franco had one, and I can't remember. It was kind of based around the 1970s porn industry.
The Deuce.
Thank you.
Which was great.
James Franco had that. This is going to be telling it from a really different perspective and a different point of view, which is why at the time, like a year ago, when we heard that they were going to do a pilot for it, we were like, yeah, this sounds really interesting. This sounds really cool. This is the type of story we haven't heard before. You add on a name like Jake Johnson. I'm ridiculously, really, really enjoy Jake Johnson's work. I loved him in New Girl. I like him whenever he pops up in just about anything. He's just got this natural charisma and comedic sense about him that I really enjoy and that I really like. Now, if you're like me, you didn't recognize the name of Ophelia Lovibond. I honestly didn't recognize her name. I didn't recognize her face. And somebody said she's from Guardians. I'm like, who was she? She was Katarina. Remember the Collector? Remember Benicio del Toro's Collector? And he had his little orange-skinned assistant girl who took the stone and she blew up. That was her. That was Ophelia. It's the only thing I have ever recognized her from. So there's that. But clearly she got the attention of people. By the way, Kung Fu Hot Dog put in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Kung Fu. So Rob, overall, I got to say, I love Jake Johnson. Him playing some seedy low rent publisher. Great. I think that's going to be hilarious. I like the premise and being on HBO, which I think is the gold standard of producing, long form television content and stuff like that. I think they're great at this. I think this sounds wonderful. I'm really looking forward to this. Rob, you heard about this story. What do you make of it?
I think it sounds great. And, we've seen there's something about this, the Deuce, the way it was evocative of the 70s. They did such a great job with the period details, kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did so great with the late 60s. I just love seeing the 70s recreated like this. I've been watching a series on Netflix called The Serpent that's set in the 70s about a serial killer in Southeast Asia. But there's just, I was a kid. I was a little kid in the 70s. So anything that is set in that period of time, I will watch. I think that, look, who doesn't want to see a movie about a porn mag and a feminist porn mag and, publishing it. I during the story, it's like when Gloria Steinem went undercover at the Playboy Mansion or at the Playboy Club. She became a Playboy bunny and wrote that expo. It's kind of like that, I would imagine. So I think that it sounds great to me. And if it's on HBO, I think it'll be. And Paul Feig, man, sure, I might not have loved the Ghostbusters remake, but I am a big fan of a lot of his other work, and I'm sure it's going to be a very worthwhile show. I think it sounds exciting.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential. And again, it being on HBO, if HBO greenlights it, it probably means it does have a lot of potential. And it probably means the pilot they shot was probably pretty good. So anyway, guys, what do you think about the sounds of this? I love the cast. I like the sound, at least with Jake Johnson. I'm not really super familiar with Ophelia's work, obviously, but I like the sound of the concept. I like that it's going to be on HBO. Question is, guys, what do you think about this? Are you looking forward to Minx? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Vishima V, who writes, "Hello from Portugal." Well, hello, Vishima from Portugal. Hopefully our theaters will be opening later this month, but many things are still uncertain. Was very happy to hear that the box office win for Godzilla vs. Kong was also translating into increased stock prices for the movie theaters there. It says that almost all the companies saw their stock prices go up. Do you think this is a good sign for movie theaters in general? Thank you. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And, we were talking yesterday, and of course, one of the big pieces of news in the movie world has, of course, been the results of Godzilla vs. Kong. Godzilla vs. Kong has now crossed $300 million already worldwide. It made close to $50 million in its opening 5 days, coming close to the opening 5-day total of Godzilla King of the Monsters, without being on HBO Max, without a pandemic, and without limited theater seating. So all that was good. But you're right. It also translated into good news, not just for Warner Brothers with Godzilla vs. Kong, but it translated into good news for the movie theaters. Rob, you mentioned on the show yesterday that some news had come out that AMC's stock price had gone up. Well, the stock price went up across the entire industry. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety, who writes, "The movie business may be poised for a post-COVID comeback. AMC saw their shares climb 13.4%. And it should be important to note here, this is not artificial growth like what we saw happen when it spiked up to like $20 a share. This is pure market growth. AMC saw shares climb 13.4%, while shares of Cinemark, another major chain, jumped 7.1%, and shares of Cineworld, the owner of Regal Cinemas, climbed 5.3%. IMAX, which has become a major source of box office for tentpole films like Godzilla vs. Kong, saw its shares increase 4.5% as well. Other theater-focused companies and chains, such as Marcus Corporation and National Cinemedia, which package advertising and pre-show programming to exhibitors, also got a stock lift, rising 4.8 and 4.4% respectively. Now, this isn't rocket science. I mean, Rob, I think for a long time, you and I and a lot of other people have said, once we start seeing the movies coming back, you're going to see stock prices probably rise. But, Rob, a lot of people hear the number 5%. You don't understand and think that's not much. And for a stock to go up 5% in like a day or two, that's actually a massive move. For it to go up like 13% over the course of just a couple of days is a massive move. Rob, you and I have been talking a lot about the fact that New York theaters reopening. It doesn't mean we're back, but it's a step in the right direction. LA theaters reopening. Not all the way back, but a step in the right direction. The advanced overseas sales of Godzilla vs. Kong. Not all there is, but it's a step in the right direction. Huge opening weekend for Kong vs. Godzilla. We're not back, but another step in the right direction. This thing with the theaters now seeing their stock prices, which means the investors, the public in general, gain more confidence in this industry. Again, we're not back, but it's yet another step in the right direction that shows they're heading this way. And now, of course, I think Warner Brothers might be regretting their decision to push. I understand their reasoning why they pushed Mortal Kombat one extra week. I do understand their reasoning, but they might be regretting it now because maybe they're thinking, man, we should just capitalize on this while it's hot. Anyway, Rob, you see this stuff that it's not just AMC, Cinemark, Regal. It's the extenuating industry as well. It's all going up right now. How do you see this, and what do you think the long-term ramifications of that are?
Well, look, I think it's only a good thing for exhibition. I mean, we've talked about this on the show so much that movies, a successful theatrical run for a motion picture adds value to that overall product. If something does well at the box office, that means people are aware of it. It generates more interest in ancillary markets, not just on HBO Max, but other VOD. People want to download it. People are excited about it because it was a success. And without that theatrical run, movies just don't have as much value as they did. So getting films back into movie theaters was vital. The question was, would people go back? Would they go back to the cinemas? I think with vaccinations happening, with COVID rates dropping, with people dying less, I mean, John, we love the movies and we love the communal experience, and it's been taken away from us for over a year. And now to have it come back and to have movies like Godzilla vs. Kong in theaters that people want to see on a big screen. I want to see dudes getting killed. I want to see Sub-Zero taking out dudes, man, on the big screen. And now maybe I'll be able to do that, even if it's a week later. I think it's really important. And I mean, in a way, it's kind of a bellwether indicator that we're going back to maybe not quite normality, but we're on the road, John. And I think that this is a good thing. We don't want our businesses. How many businesses were devastated? I want AMC to come back. They invested $5 billion to make sure that we, as their consumers, were given a great experience in their theaters. I got to see Joker with you in the AMC Dolby in Burbank, and that was a primo experience going to the movies.
Yeah, that was a good experience.
Great picture, great sound, really well done all the way around by AMC. And then suddenly, sorry, all that money we invested in our own consumers, they can't come to our theaters. And to see them come back and to see stock prices rising, it's only a good thing. I just hope that people still get vaccinated and people can still go back to the movie theaters, because I got Fast and Furious, bruh. I want to see that. I want to see Dune. I want Justice for Han on the big screen, man. Come on now.
I just can't believe how excited I am for Mortal Kombat.
I know, right?
I was more excited for Godzilla vs. Kong, but I mean, that Mortal Kombat trailer, I mean, it was just so bonkers. And you know what? Here's interesting. I wonder if, like, the pandemic never happened, how would a Godzilla versus Kong or a Mortal Kombat do? Because it's almost like, Aaron and I were talking about this the other day. It's almost like there's a perfect kind of fertile ground for it right now. It's like we have been so deprived of the big screen experience for so long that giant freaking kaiju Godzilla versus Kong or Mortal Kombat on the big screen. I mean, it just my mouth waters at the idea of getting into the theater to see these kinds of movies. And I think they're taking advantage of that.
You know how before you watch YouTube videos, they have ads?
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of Mortal Kombat ads before YouTube videos, and I keep up on other people's YouTube videos. I don't find myself clicking through them. I like to watch Sub-Zero. It's got the ice going, and I watch it. And I never thought that a Mortal Kombat movie would be something I would be looking forward to as much as I am.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy, right? How much I'm looking forward to Mortal Kombat. I cannot wait.
I know.
Get over here. All right, guys. Question is, you start seeing that now it's not just Godzilla versus Kong doing great. It's not just people going back to the theaters. Now the theater stocks, all of the theaters and their auxiliary industries, all their stock prices are rising back up again. Again, it does not mean we're there yet. There's still a long way to go, but it is nonetheless yet another step in the right direction that we've seen happening. Question is for you guys. How do you interpret this whole thing? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Alex McCormack, who writes, "Hi, John. Huge news today with Star Trek Picard Season 2. I know you said you really liked Season 1, and so did I, but today's news was even better. They put out a little teaser for Season 2 and revealed that the plot will revolve around the return of Q, saying, 'The trial never ends,' taking us back to the very first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Did you see the teaser, and what did you think of it?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And you know what? Guys, I still remember, like my mom was a Star Trek fan, is a Star Trek fan, continues to be a Star Trek fan. And so it was kind of a big deal around the Campea household when Star Trek, The Next Generation was coming out. And I still remember being in our family living room, mom popping on the TV, and us sitting down to watch. What was the name of the first episode? Something at Waypoint or Farpoint Station. What was it called? The name of the first episode?
Encounter at Farpoint.
Encounter at Farpoint was the name of the first episode. And of course, we're introduced to Q and all that kind of Q, who became a beloved nuisance throughout the entire rest of the Star Trek The Next Generation. And of course, Star Trek The Next Generation then ended with Q. In the final episode, still to my opinion, Rob, the best series finale in television history with All Good Things Part 1 and 2. I thought it was the greatest series finale ever. I really do. I've never seen a show wrap up so perfectly the way Star Trek The Next Generation did. And Q was a beloved character. Well, apparently now, with the return of Picard, they're moving into Season 2, and they are bringing John Delancey back. Q is coming back. This comes to us from the folks over at Screen Rant, who writes, "As a part of Star Trek First Contact Day, Paramount Plus unveiled the very first teaser for Picard Season 2. It doesn't feature any major footage from the upcoming season, because they just started filming in February, I believe. Instead, choosing to take a trip through Jean-Luc's study as he speaks in voiceover. The true final frontier is time, he declares, taking the franchise's most iconic phrase and putting a spin on it. The real tantalizing tease comes at the end. Q, John Delancey, is back. The trial never ends, Q says, before giving a rather ominous laugh. The trailer ends with the confirmation that Picard Season 2 will premiere indeed in 2022. And Rob, I don't know what the YouTube channel was or anything, but they were doing a live stream with Will Wheaton and Patrick Stewart talking about the upcoming Season 2. And John Delancey came in on the Skype call as well. And it was just really cool. I mean, see, and John Delancey comes in, he says, "Bonjour, moi capitaine." And I thought, oh, dude, that's so great to hear him say that. Because I love some of my favorite stuff in Star Trek The Next Generation was honestly just the conversations that Q and Picard would often have. And some of the best stuff from Picard. I remember one dialogue between them. You're talking about our limited time is what makes life so precious to us. That whole speech he gave Q before, and I have loved that. And I've been wondering for a long time, when are we going to get to see the Q again? And so, as somebody now, I understand you and I have different perspectives on Picard. You were not a big fan of Picard. I was a big fan of the show Picard. So I see this and I'm pretty stoked about it. I think this is really wonderful news. But Rob, as a longer time Star Trek fan than me, you are much more vested in Star Trek than I am. You saw this news. What did you make of it?
Oh, John, so many mixed emotions. Well, here's the thing. Obviously, I spent 3 years of my life making documentaries about Star Trek: The Next Generation, where I got to meet and interact with all these people for extended periods of time. I think one of the great things about Next Gen was the fact that it was bookended by Picard and Q's relationship. And like you pointed out, All Good Things is one of the best series finales of all time. And I just feel that one of the things about Star Trek, one of my biggest problems with the franchise, is it keeps going back into its past. Whereas Star Trek: The Next Generation offered, the Q was a new creation of Star Trek: The Next Generation. We'd never met the Q Continuum, certainly not a character like Q. There'd been a character like Trelane in the original series. And the fact that the whole series was bookended by John Delancey's Q character, it was such a great way to end the show. And the fact that they revisited the pilot in that show was so interesting and wonderful. And I feel like, they're moving forward. The fact that modern Star Trek is constantly, they're bringing back Captain Janeway, they bring back Spock, they bring back Captain Pike. They're going back into Star Trek's history, whereas modern Star Trek, The Next Generation, I think was as successful as it was because it charted a new course for Star Trek, and it very seldom went back into Trek history and brought back characters. Whenever they did it, it started with Sarek, Spock's father, but McCoy was in the pilot, but it was done sparingly. And I feel that modern Star Trek is relying upon classic Star Trek in order to appeal to viewers. And I feel, in a way, one of the great things about the Star Trek franchise is it constantly moved forward and reinvented itself. And as much as I want to see, as much as I love John Delancey, as much as I love Patrick Stewart, I feel they're falling back on old, well-trodden, familiar ground in an attempt to appeal to viewers. And I don't think it's always been, actually, it hasn't been entirely successful. They did that with the first season of Picard, 7 of 9, Riker and Troy, Icheb. I mean, they go back and they're bringing back all of these old characters, and I feel that Star Trek needs to chart a forward course into the future. And look, maybe we'll get as long as we get a great story, and they're going to bring back Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan, and we know that Guinan and Q had a rivalry of some kind. We don't know what that is because they never told us. But if they delve into that, maybe it'll illuminate that character relationship and that dynamic, and it'll play into something new. But I mean, look, fingers crossed. I hope it's good.
Yeah, see, I feel a little bit differently on that than you do because, I believe there's a difference between, capitalizing on nostalgia and moving backwards. Like, with a lot of Star Wars stuff, it's moving backwards. It's telling stories that we already know how those things come about. With Picard, like having Riker there, I mean, these are the closest relationships in his life. So I don't mind that. And I found it to be kind of a fresh take. But that is going to be the challenge they're going to face moving forward, is how do we pepper in, because like even Next Generation, right? They started the show with Bones showing up. They do the big Klingon thing. Spock eventually comes around. But they found a way to pepper when appropriate and create new stories with these new characters as they move forward. When you're bringing back a Jean-Luc Picard, who is already a character we know, it's going to be the challenge, I think you're right, to find the right way to pepper in the recognizable within the context of a fresh story. And it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that line. But I just, in general, Rob, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I was excited that John Delancey was coming back, because I love that character. And it's been, how long has it been since All Good Things? What has it been?
That was 1994.
I mean, so we are talking, 27 years?
But he did appear in Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and he did make an appearance in last year's animated Lower Decks, but that doesn't count.
That one doesn't count. But I want to see Q and Picard. I want to see the two of them talking again. I yearn for that. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this news about the direction of Picard Season 2 and the fact that Q is coming back? Are you thinking, hey, maybe this is a little bit too nostalgia focused? Are you thinking this is terrific? I mean, how do you feel about that? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Joseph. And Joseph writes, it looks like James Gunn isn't wasting any time after he gets Suicide Squad out there. A person asked him on Twitter when he was going to start shooting Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and he said, this year. I have to guess that they've already been doing at least a little pre-production while he was making Suicide Squad to be ready to shoot this year. But what do you think of this? And are you still interested in the franchise? Thanks. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And listen, you're right. I was surprised to hear James Gunn say that they are going to start shooting Guardians of the Galaxy this year. And I'll tell you why I was surprised. It's not just the Suicide Squad thing. Because normally a director, he's going to wrap up what he's doing. Suicide Squad's been in the can, but the directors are always going to tinker with it while they've got time. That movie's coming out soon. So then you figure all the pre-production, whatever, and maybe start shooting. But it's not just that. Because James Gunn doesn't go from Suicide Squad to Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's got that damn Peacemaker show he's also doing that he's got to get running. And that's the immediate thing that he's doing after Suicide Squad. However, it sounds like James Gunn has been juggling like 5 or 6 balls in the air at the same time. This comes to us from the folks over at Joe Blow, who writes, James Gunn is currently in the midst of production on Peacemaker, a spinoff of the Suicide Squad. So he's tinkering with Suicide Squad and actively in production on Peacemaker right now. A spinoff of the Suicide Squad, which focuses on John Cena's character. So he'll have to complete that project before turning his sights on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But Gunn did drop a follow-up tweet to tease the sequel. Our designers and visual development geniuses are busy creating new fantastic designs of other worlds and alien beings, Gunn wrote. I'm not sure the galaxy is big enough for all this magic. This one is huge. I'm excited. So basically what they're saying here is James Gunn is just putting the final bows and last little bit of makeup on Suicide Squad and trying to promote Suicide Squad and doing some press engagements while he is also already involved in production on this HBO series Peacemaker with John Cena. And then he hops into another room, jumps on Zoom, and starts talking to all of his pre-production crew that is already actively in pre-production with design and things like that for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This is insane. Now, listen, some people confuse things, say, oh, yeah, well, Samuel L. Jackson shoots 18 movies in a year. It's totally different for an actor. An actor, you just fly in, walk onto set, go into your trailer, wait till they call you out. I'm not trying to undermine the work of actor. It's too bad Aaron's not here right now. But, you go and you shoot your role. You're there for 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then you leave. The directors, Rob, you've told me this before, like a director, your life is kind of tied up for 2 years, sometimes 3 years or more on a single project. This guy is wrapping up Suicide Squad. He's in production of Peacemaker, and he's doing pre-production of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then he's going to go into shooting Guardians of the Galaxy 3 for this thing to come out next year. This sounds, Rob, tremendously ambitious. And it sounds like, you can describe James Gunn in a lot of ways, but lazy ain't one of them. Lazy is clearly not one of them. And listen, I'll tell you what. Look, I was not the biggest fan in the world. I was not the biggest fan in the world at all of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I liked it. I liked Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I did think it was a significant step down from the magnificence of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I know a lot of other people really love Guardians 2, and that's great, but I thought it was a step backwards. So I am really excited to see James Gunn get back on this and go back to Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I love the characters. I know that the Russos consulted with James with how to use the Guardians characters in Infinity War and Endgame, and they were used brilliantly in those things. I'm looking forward to visiting these characters again. And of course, Rob, we're going to get to see them in Thor, Love and Thunder. We're going to get to see a number of these characters in Thor, Love and Thunder as well. But Rob, anyway, you hear this. Guardians going into production this year. James Gunn working on, to certain degrees, some greater, some lesser, 3 different projects at the same time. What stands out to you most about this, and where's your anticipation level for Guardians 3 right now?
Well, I'm a huge fan of both Guardians movies. I like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 a lot more than most. I found the emphasis on broken families sort of interesting, and I really responded to it. But I think somebody who's as creative as James Gunn is, and knowing, like, we work on multiple projects at the same time. And I think, I think James Gunn realizes he's at a phase in his life where he's in a position to be as productive as he wants to be, really. And I'm sure that when he was making Suicide Squad, he probably had a lot of ideas that came to him. And like, he was probably going home at night after even spending 12 hours a day shooting and maybe going to the edit bay. Maybe he was up for 16, 17, 18 hours. I'll bet he went home and was like putting pen to paper, writing that script. But he'd written the whole script before, I think, for Guardians 3, but still probably
that is a key part. Like the script, before he got let go from Disney, they had because remember, that was a big part of the story. They had fired James Gunn, but Alan Horn's like, yeah, we're still going to use this Guardians of the Galaxy 3 script. I mean, which is fair. They owned it, but so that was a key point.
Yeah, and development's going on. You've got Marvel, they're developing things, they're building set pieces, they're creating animatics. So James Gunn, I mean, he's probably consulting through this whole process. And work continues. You get previs, you make notes, you send it back, and Marvel's got a very well-oiled machine there. I think James Gunn they already had his script, they already had his vision, they know what he would be doing. He can just slide right in, and he's got this incredible machine there to support him. So I think it absolutely can be done. And I'm excited. I think when you have 2 studios, when you're working for 2 studios, man, you ride that wave. There's no you don't go, I'm too tired, I can't. No. As a filmmaker, if you take siestas every couple hours for a year, you'll make it work. He's living the dream, man, in a big way. And I don't think there's any way he's going to let that slip through his fingers or let the quality slip. He's in a great position that few directors have ever found themselves in. So go, James Gunn, go.
Yeah, and you know what? It is premature to say this. I acknowledge that it's a little bit premature to say this, but because we haven't seen Suicide Squad yet, I've loved the trailers we've seen. I've loved them.
Yeah.
I loved what they showed us at that little sizzle they showed us at DC Fandom. I thought that was great too.
It looked bananas. It's huge. That movie's huge.
Maybe the movie will suck, maybe, and so I acknowledge this might be a little bit premature. I really do hope though that Suicide Squad is at least close to as good as we hope it'll be.
Me too.
But B, while I love that James Gunn is going back to do Guardians of the Galaxy, I am, and I want him to. I really hope he does come back then to DC and do another film with them. I would love, and I don't know how realistic this is, but probably very unrealistic. But I would love to see him start alternating movies. I would love to see him do a movie with Marvel, go back over, do a movie with DC, come back over, do a movie with Marvel. If for no other reason, it really does quell the whole, zombie Marvel slave fanboys and the DC, slave fanboys, the war between them when they've got, it's like Romeo and Juliet had a kid, and now, the 2 families have got to get along because they share a relative, right? And I don't know, I would love to see that. Now, I acknowledge it's probably unlikely. Both sides would probably want him, hey, look, we've got you working on this franchise. We want you focused on this franchise. Probably both sides would want that. But Rob, do you think there's any chance that James Gunn can just work out and say, look, I am going to alternate films. I'm going to do a film in the MCU. I'm going to do a film in the DC, and I'm going to alternate. Do you think this, or is that just a total fantasy pipe dream of mine? What do you think?
No, I don't think it is, because that's what he's doing right now. He's already doing that, and I think that if Suicide Squad is a $1 billion grossing film, Warner Brothers is not going to want him to just disappear and go back to Marvel. I see that, it's interesting. Just because both movies are dealing with superheroes and are within universes, you're still working for different companies. It's still work for hire. He's not under any obligation, or he's not under a contract with Marvel. And also, they already like Suicide Squad so much that they move forward with a Peacemaker show that he's the executive producer and probably the creator of. So he's in business with Warner Brothers for the long term, at least in the near term, for the long term. And I mean, he's got a movie coming out and a TV series. So he's more ensconced in a way with Warner Brothers moving forward right now than he is over with Disney, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 might be the end of his tenure there. I would imagine not if it does really well, but you never know. And in this case, James Gunn's killing it, crushing.
Now let's not forget too that prior to his departure from Disney and all the controversy surrounding that, he wasn't just making Guardians of the Galaxy. He had kind of been elevated within Marvel to kind of be Kevin Feige's main galactic level MCU main kind of overseer, right? So he was taking on a larger role in the MCU overall, and then everything fell apart. So it's going to be interesting to see if maybe they reinstate that sort of part for him too. Or if Warner Brothers offers him like, hey, we want to make you a Hamada's right-hand man. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this, that all this stuff that Gunn's doing right now, but it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is actually going into production this year? When I heard that he was doing Peacemaker next, I thought there's no way this movie's going to start shooting until at least 2022, but they're going to start shooting this year. What do you guys think about that? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now go over and turn the show over to you guys. We're going to start taking your live comments and questions. How do you get a live comment or question on the show? It's really simple. Simply use the tip link in the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or you could enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, let's jump on over and see what you guys are talking about. We're going to get things started off here with American Jedi. American Jedi writes, John, I wanted you to know that you have enhanced and ruined 2 films for me. You enhanced Twilight by saying, Twilight boy, and I hate that film, and Endgame when all I hear is you yelling, Avengers, and then whispering, Assemble. Thanks, John. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I actually had another friend of mine call me and say, damn it, Campea, I was watching Endgame with my sister, and then that part came when he says Avengers, and all I could hear was your damn voice in my head going, Assemble. I said, hey, man, don't blame me. Put that one on Chris Evans. All right, next up, Matt Weber writes, WandaVision had a brilliant concept and execution, but was ultimately let down by a fairly pedestrian storyline. Oh, I don't agree with that at all. Marvel chose to A, take the predictable path almost every chance they got. I don't agree with that at all. B, telegraph their reveals. Agnes equals Agatha, Hayward an antagonist. Well, you just named 2 out of the 20 they did. Anyway. C, leave major characters' fundamentals unchanged. Vision is still dead. Yeah, but how many times this is the Marvel fake death universe? I would suggest leaving Vision dead is the most unexpected thing they could have possibly done. Wanda renamed, but still good guy. And these decisions, in my opinion, led to the finale's somewhat mixed reception. From this perspective, my somewhat cynical Falcon and the Winter Soldier predictions are: Sam ends up with the shield. Well, they telegraph that. I mean, we kind of know that's where it's going. Walker ends up a bad guy. Battlestar changes sides when he realizes, and the writers will only be allowed to make big changes to characters they've introduced or to those who MCU stories are basically done. Example, Zemo. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't think I will be. Marvel are very rationally preserving their movie continuity, but at the expense of shows. It will undercut the Disney Plus series if they are hamstrung this way. Do you have any thoughts? I got to tell you, Matt, I really disagree with your. Let's just go back to the Vision thing, right? Let's talk about the Vision thing for a second. They predictably left Vision dead. Dude, that is the most unpredictable thing Marvel has done in ages. This is the Marvel fake death universe. They are constantly bringing everybody back. And the fact that they actually leave it off with Vision is actually, no, the Vision we knew, he is actually dead. They built a new machine that looked like him, but he's a different character, and he has his own mind, and he has Vision's memories, but he has his own mind, he has his own personality, they built a different body. Vision is dead. That is not something most people saw coming. And then let's talk about the Pietro thing. Everybody and their mothers was swearing, he's Quicksilver from the X-Men universe. You're going to tell me that was predictable? It wasn't predictable. I tried to tell people he's not, but nobody was listening to me, and that's okay. That was completely not foreseen. They're going to do a lot. Listen, so I've got to disagree with you on that, man. I think when you look at the amount of chatter that was going on around that show, if anything, one of the big reasons I sense disappointment from some people was that their theories that they were convinced was going to happen didn't happen. And I think that's a testimony to the fact that it really did keep us on our toes. Dude, I had a number of things. Like, I never thought at all, like, we know where Monica Rambeau was going, Rob. We know who Monica Rambeau is, for people who know the comics. We know where she's going, but I thought for sure they weren't going to give her powers yet in this show. I thought they were going to save that for Captain Marvel 2, and they didn't. All of a sudden, the eyes are glowing, and she's got her powers, and it's like, okay, well, that one right out of left. I didn't see that coming. I got that wrong. Everybody, every week, every show was getting predictions wrong and some predictions right. It was a show that kept everybody on their toes. And I think, Rob, you and I were discussing this a little bit before the show started today, that, the discussion level between WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's a massive difference between discussion level, because Falcon and the Winter Soldier is more straightforward, comic book, action, a little bit of mystery here and there. Yeah. But WandaVision, it was week by week, everybody forming 15 different theories and ideas, and some getting proven and disproven. It was all over the place. And that's why for like 2 months, the dominant topic that people were constantly wanting to write in and talk about was WandaVision. So to say the show was predictable, I can't agree with you, brother. I can't agree with you on that. Rob, what's your take on that?
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think what they're doing, somebody described it this way to me, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has always taken its cues from the comic book source material, which I think is why it works. And that's why I'm always baffled when people say, oh, it's a corporate product. I'm like, look, it literally is the cinematic translation of the Marvel comic books, the experience of it. And now I see these shows as a limited comic book series. Like you would get, Chris Claremont did a great Wolverine limited series that went into Wolverine's backstory, and you learned so much about Wolverine. And what happened in that limited series had ramifications moving forward in the X books, even today. And I think what they're doing is they're doing the same thing. They've taken the cues from the comics, and these shows are limited series that are giving you backstory. They're setting up characters. Monica Rambeau is going to be in Captain Marvel 2. I mean, we saw her come back from the snap. We saw her get her powers. And now she's going to be in the next Captain America or Captain Marvel movie. So the idea that these shows have no ramifications in the larger MCU is just, it's incorrect. And we're seeing these characters being given backstory that they would never be given in movies because there's not enough time to set that up. And if you're going to see, if Sam is going to take on the mantle of Captain America, as I suspect he will by the end of this show, including having a brand new Falcon Captain America uniform, that's a big deal. And moving forward, I think they're doing great thing in that you've got these great side stories. So when Sam shows up in the next Avengers film or whatever movie Falcon or Falcon Captain America happens to be in, we know where he came from. And I think what they're doing is they're rewarding viewers. These are not insignificant stories that we're watching. We're seeing stories that, like, Florence Pugh is going to show up in Hawkeye. In Hawkeye, in that series, and probably moving forward, we know Black Widow's sister, adoptive sister, grown up with her, whatever that is, whatever the relationship is in the MCU, that's going to be significant. And I think look, Scarlet Witch became the Scarlet Witch in WandaVision. Moving forward, that incarnation of the character is a big part of, as at least we've been told, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which means her entire backstory becoming Scarlet Witch. You have to have watched WandaVision to get where she's at now, to understand her headspace. So I think these are very significant stories, and they are going to have great ramifications in the MCU moving forward.
I agree. And by the way, listen, Matt, I'm not downplaying or undermining your experience with it. We all have different experiences with shows. You know, I watch a movie or a show that everybody loves and it didn't work for me. And for you, your experience with it, you found it really predictable and all that kind of stuff. And I respect that. I'm just sharing with you that I had a very, very different experience with it. And I think a lot of people did, but that was your experience and it's every bit as valid as mine, my friend. And thank you for sharing your experience with it. I appreciate that, Matt, very much. All right, let's move on here. Murray Reich writes, me and my wife finally went to see Raya and the Last Dragon. I quite enjoyed it. It was very good. It was our first time seeing a movie together since Sonic came out. Wow, that's going back a bit. The first movie we saw since Sonic came. And listen, I was very concerned with how Raya would do because I was very excited about that movie when they first announced it and showed us some teaser footage at D23 forever ago. And then it went through a lot of drama. They pulled the director out of it. They put in a new director, changed the voice cast, changed a bunch of the story. But I got to admit, I actually also found it quite good, Murray. Not super fantastic, but I thought it was quite good. All right, Murray Reich also writes, 1 of 2. I also saw Godzilla vs. Kong on the big screen, and it was amazing. More like a Kong movie perspective, that's absolutely true. But the fight between them was awesome. I don't know how I would watch this at home. It's also hard to get tickets in New York City because of limited seating, so you've got to book it in advance because otherwise you lose your seats in a snap. Great to use A-List again. Also, that Space Jam 2 trailer looks pretty good. It's like Ready Player One, starring Space Jam tunes and LeBron. Yeah, I agree. I had the same experience in that. Rob, you and I talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
That a lot of that trailer did feel a little bit like Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. I mean, that's totally what it felt like. But yeah, the Godzilla versus Kong on the big screen, especially when it's been so long since we've got to see stuff like that on the big screen, Murray. And I'm so glad you were able to have that experience. And good, yeah, right now, don't fool yourself, especially when like Mortal Kombat comes out. Don't fool yourself to think, oh, I'm going to go see a movie later tonight. We'll just buy our tickets around dinner time before we're going to go. With limited seating capacity and people going back in the numbers that they're going back, do book your tickets early, guys. It's just good little tip there from Murray Reich on that one. So thanks for sharing that, Murray. Next up, the Sock writes, did Godzilla vs. Kong plus Nobody double feature and had a great time? That is an awesome double feature, Mr. Sock. Had a great time. One question. I will be vague as to avoid spoilers. Why did they pause like that during the fight when he's standing on him? What the hell was that about? Well, you know what, Sock? We can't, I'm not going to address that, cannot address that. This is not a open spoiler discussion to discuss. So obviously, I can't answer that in this environment right now. Maybe in a week or two, we can talk openly about that stuff. But right now, because a lot of people are waiting to see it in theaters and they haven't had the chance to see it in theaters yet, then we're going to put at least a short moratorium on open spoiler talk here on the show about it. So I appreciate you asking, but this isn't the place that I can answer it right now, my friend. All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, I'm over all these combat sports titles. WBC, ABC, YMCA. They give a belt to everybody and their mother-in-laws. Remember the good old days of early UFC, no weight divisions, no gloves, 2 men, 2 women, step in the cage and let's go. 1 champ, 1 belt. Well, I will tell you this, Wakandan Forever. I do get, one of the things I'm really, why I gave up on boxing forever ago is there's like 15 different WBC, WBA, XYZ, TMZ, blah, blah. There's like 15 different organizations. And it feels like every half a pound is a different weight division. 142.5 pound is junior bantamweight. 142 pounds is bantamweight. 142.5 pounds is senior bantamweight or whatever. And it seems like there's 5,000 guys walking around with a belt on their shoulder calling themselves world champ. I much prefer the UFC. It's like you go from like 205 to 260. You go from light heavyweight to that. You go from what is middleweight? 185? I think middleweight's 185. So you go from 185 to like 205 for light heavyweight. Like there's only like certain number of divisions instead of 30 or 40 of them. And I prefer that one myself personally. All right. Next up, Gray Jedi writes, I found a dancing microphone. It says it belongs to an Obi-John Kenobi. Do you know who he's talking about? Hi, Rob and John. Big fan of both of your shows. Keep up the great work. Someday I'm still going to, maybe if I ever get the money, Rob, I'm going to hire an actual animation company and do like a 5-minute, a Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone short film. I'm totally going to do it someday. All right, next up, Mike Z Movies writes, hey, John, hope your leg is healing well. It is healing up. They're still not all the way back yet, but it's getting there. Thank you for asking. Did you hear Tara Reid say American Pie 5 is happening and there is an amazing script? Thoughts on the mainline Pie stars, not the terrible spinoffs? I'll be honest with you, Rob. I was never big into the American Pie stuff.
Not even the first one?
I was going to say the first one I thought was charming and I got a kick out of it. I never really liked any of the following ones. And listen, for a short time, I dated one of the girls from one of the movies. I'm not going to say who, but I'll tell you afterwards who. But I dated one of the girls from one of the movies for a short time. But I never liked any of the rest of them. Like to me, American Pie is one movie. It was that movie. It was charming for what it was in the day. But I really have never cared about it since. When you think about the American Pie series, what are your thoughts, Rob?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I did not keep up with especially the direct-to-video sequels, but I liked the first film quite a bit. I mean, I thought, one time at band camp, that still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I liked the cast. I really did. I mean, I thought it was like it reminded me of a teen comedy from the 80s. And I enjoyed it. I mean, did it change my life? No, because I was older than I was when I saw teen comedies in the 80s. But I thought it was good. It was fun. But I just, to me, it was a one-note concept they kept making more movies for. And I'm glad everybody got work. But like American Pie 5, unless they Cobra Kai it, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't move my needle.
Yeah. I love that phrase. Okay, next up, Scott Brown writes, one of the things I'm really enjoying about Falcon and Winter Soldier is that Bucky's fighting style is different from Winter Soldier. Bucky is much more reserved, and you can tell he's holding back versus Winter Soldier is brutal and almost Terminator / Michael Myers-like, which is why I liked the bar fight scene in this latest episode, and in which I think they made a note to show that Winter Soldier was coming out. And to the point that even Sam, at the end of the fight, like, was looking concerned and like even said to Bucky when the fight was done, like, are you good? You remember? Because that was just, and even the way he just ends with the guy with his hand on his throat on the thing there. But I really like that. And I think we're going to see more and more of Winter Soldier come out there. Rob, what are your thoughts on what he's saying there about the different fighting styles that we've seen in Bucky?
Well, I would imagine over the years, he's probably developed many different fighting styles, but I really like what we've seen. I really like the action. I mean, in the show, I'm expecting they've given us a pretty great, like each episode they're upping the ante. I mean, Sharon Carter, man, straight up impaling dudes. I want to see Sam and Bucky have the ultimate coordinated action scene. More so, the truck chase thing was pretty damn good, but I want to see. I mean, they keep upping the ante, so I want to see Bucky just really unleash on dudes the way Sharon Carter did. They haven't shown us that, but I'm waiting. Yeah,
that was a good scene too. That Sharon Carter scene, by the way. Emily Van Camp, good Canadian kid. Just want to throw that in there. From Port Perry, Ontario, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Payne141 who writes, love Godzilla vs. Kong, and I'm super happy to see it do so well. But how big of a negative or a positive effect do you think the day and date release had on it? Oh, I think it had a very negative effect on it. I think it had a significant negative effect on it. Like, yes, yay. It made 48 point something million in its first 5 days. Domestically, it made almost 300 million. Now it has passed $300 million. Internationally, worldwide already. That's all great. but it would have done better. It would have done better if it wasn't for day and date. We're probably looking at maybe a 60 million opening 5-day instead of 40 something. We're probably talking 350, 375 million worldwide, whatever. So it did have a negative impact on it. There's no doubt about it. It absolutely did. How big or how small, I'm not really sure. I mean, they say 4.8 million people watched it on HBO Max, Rob, which is more than double of what watched Wonder Woman.
Yep.
In the same time period, more than double. So how many of those people just watched it because it was just at home for free and they weren't really going to go see it anyway? How many of those people would have gotten up and gone to the theaters had it not been on HBO Max? We won't know. So I'm going to guess, a significant amount, but not like double. I don't know. How much of an impact do you think it had on it, Rob?
What's interesting to me is how many people did both.
Yeah.
4 million people, you have HBO Max. It's available to watch at home. Like I'm not vaccinated yet. Elizabeth didn't want me to go to a movie theater, which I understand because I really wanted to go see it at the Chinese, man, in IMAX, their IMAX. And but the fact that it was available and so many people did go to the theaters, I think it had somewhat of an impact. But the fact that so many people did go to the theaters still during a pandemic shows me that maybe there's something. I mean, look, I don't think movies should be released day and date. I don't. I think a 45-day window is the right number in our new world moving forward. But to see that this is what it was able to do with a simultaneous release, I think that's pretty extraordinary, really. And again, like you just said, I don't know how many people have HBO Max, those 4 million people, would they have rushed out to the theaters? There's a lot of people that don't have those large theaters that provide the spectacle, and around them, a lot of more, rural, suburban America that doesn't have giant theaters to run out and see something big like Godzilla versus Kong. I found it more interesting that they both seem to do well. That to me is significant.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right, next up, we've got Alan who writes, "Hey, John and Rob, I just saw the new Loki trailer and I loved it. It got me thinking, do you think we could see future series get some sort of limited theatrical release? And do you think they should? I would love to see Loki on the big screen." All right. Well, Rob, this is a conversation that's been around for a long time. Like we know, Game of Thrones once in a while would for a season premiere, they would do like a 1 day early. They do a theatrical thing or whatever. I don't think any of them really are dead serious about that because mostly you're making these series specifically for your streaming channel. Do you want to give people a secondary option, or do you want them to be, if you're going to watch this, you got to get our service? So I just don't think there is enough of a demand for it. I know people like me think, oh my God, like I would have gone to a theater to watch WandaVision or gone to a theater to watch, at a certain time, I would have gone to in the beginning days of Arrow. In the first 2 seasons, I would have gone to the movie theater to watch Arrow. But the reality is, a vast, vast majority of people wouldn't. So I just don't think they see a lot of advantage there. Do you think that could become a thing, though, Rob? Like a major thing?
I don't think it could become a major thing, but like you, I would love to have seen WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier in a theater. Like if they had a special week-long engagement, I don't know how many people would go, but like you could go and watch all the episodes. But I would want to watch them in 1 day, like binge them all. But these shows are being made, like you said, specifically for these streaming services. They're made so people subscribe. I mean, make no mistake, they're making MCU shows so you subscribe to Disney Plus. And they're going to do the same thing with all of these streamers. They're making shows that want to exclusively be a part of these streamers lineup, so you subscribe to them. Netflix, they talked about, well, we're going to buy theaters, or they bought The Egyptian in Hollywood. Netflix doesn't want you to go to a movie theater and see The Irishman. They want you to watch The Irishman on their service. They appeased filmmakers who still believe that I'd like to see my movie theatrically released, but that's going to go away. They're making shows so you subscribe, period. That's what they want.
All right.
That said, I would go, if they did a special thing, like you get a swag, you get a popcorn, like some kind of a special drink souvenir from WandaVision. I don't know. Here's a Hex soft drink container, that's shaped like a hex with WandaVision on it. I would go. I would be like, I'll sit there. I would go. I saw all 3 Lord of the Rings movies at the Dome when they had like Lord of the Rings Day. And if they did something like that to celebrate the release of these shows in major cities, I would go, dude. I would go sit there and watch all the episodes of WandaVision if they did some day-long extravaganza.
Well,
it'd be a one-off.
I think
it'd just be a fun thing to do.
For me, it just goes back to the thing that everything in a theater is better than watching at home, because I
totally
love, like, I even, like, AMC theaters before the pandemic, they started showing some Sunday football games. You can go to the AMC theater that when I was living in Burbank, and you can go watch Sunday football games. And me and a couple buddies, we would go, even though we could just sit at home and watch them at home, yes. But we went to the theater on a couple of occasions, got some food, and were with like 75 to 150 other people rooting and cheering and hollering. And it's just a better experience. It was just a better experience. So
because it's big. It's big and it's overwhelming. Like, I would love to have seen that opening action sequence from Falcon and Winter Soldier, the aerial attack, that was awesome. And I would love to have seen it on a big screen with thunderous, or at least on maybe someone's going over to one of my friends' giant home theaters, it would have been better. I would have enjoyed it more. It would have had more impact.
Yeah. You and I are both one of those. All right. Next up, Ryan Lohner writes, Invincible is right up there with Umbrella Academy, The Boys, and Doom Patrol. It's not quite there yet. I mean, I'm really enjoying it, but it's 4 episodes in. Let's give it a little bit more time. I'm not ready to say it's there yet. This line especially wrecked me. He's finally standing still, and I still can't see him. I have been really enjoying Invincible, Rob, but I am a little bit nervous because I know unless they break with the comic story, which I don't think they're going to break too terribly much from the comic story.
Right.
I'm not actually looking forward to where it's going. I really like where it's so character focused, and it's so, like what's going on world, all that kind of stuff. And if you know the comic story of Invincible, in the comics, a lot of it doesn't actually even take place on Earth. Like, it becomes very, very, very intergalactic and it's the stuff about Umbrella Academy and The Boys, and even the wackiness of Doom Patrol is, when it gets down to its core thing, it's about these characters and the struggles and the problems and whatever and the things they face. And then you add on top of that all the wackiness. So I am loving Invincible right now. I'm a little bit nervous about where it might go. Have you caught up? Did you watch, what was the latest episode? Episode 4? Is that the newest one?
Yeah.
Where they go to Mars?
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I really like the show. I love the cast. I really like
the voice
the
cast
show
is great.
A lot. It's great. And, I can't, maybe it's a failing of mine, but I can't compare an animated show to Umbrella Academy or The Boys. While the subject matter is still great, it's still animated. And I love animation. The show I worked on, Dota, is on Netflix, Dragon's Blood, which I love. But I have to say, I've always put live action on a tier a little bit higher above animation. But I do think for what it is as an adaptation of that book, and I think it's a wonderful show. It delivers. It does not pull any punches, and it's I would say it's very, very entertaining and really well done.
Yeah, I really like. I'm liking Invincible very, very much. I'm liking it very, very much. All right, next up. Corey O writes, John, I love Godzilla vs. Kong so much that after watching in theaters, I immediately went home and watched it again on HBO Max. LOL, hope you had a great day. And yeah, listen, we, obviously, me and my brother-in-law Ray and a couple of us went to go, and Kimberly Kern, we went to go see it in theaters. And then when we had people over for Easter on Sunday, I had that on the TV in the background. I just had it on in the TV background. It was a nice thing to have on, Corey. All right, next up. Stefan DeLynn Routers writes, Hey, John, I'd like to recommend one of the most overlooked movies of 2020. His House. Never heard of it. I'm going to guess right now it's a Netflix movie. It's a Netflix original horror movie that tackles issues like the refugee crisis and survivor's guilt. It's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, must see. I'm not surprised. I've never even heard of it. Rob, are you familiar with this?
It's awesome.
Really?
Awesome.
What's it basically about?
It's one of my favorite films that was released last year, and it is a tremendous It's a horror movie, and yet it's a very, you know, a very, let's call it socially conscious horror film. Very surprising, very unique, and like you said, I think the title might have hampered it. I mean, his house. Well, if you hadn't seen the trailer, what does that mean? Is that like a sitcom? You know, is it? But I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in horror. But don't. It's one of those things. Don't read anything about it. Don't even watch the trailer. I'd seen the trailer. I'd never heard of it either. It was one of those Netflix trailers that like pops up. Watch it. It's really, really good.
That brings up again. I feel like this comes up all the time.
I know what you're gonna say.
Netflix is the worst at promoting their own material. Like, it's here you are talking about it. I'm on Netflix a lot, and here you are talking about it, and here we've got, who was it that wrote that in? That was Stefan who wrote that in, saying this movie that is really, really great. I never even heard of it. That's how bad they are at this.
I mean, I don't understand. Like, I'm a horror fan, and I have learned, like, there has been some really great stuff showing up on Netflix, foreign films, smaller films, and there's been some really great stuff showing up on Shudder. And it's like, you know, and Shudder, thank God, has been releasing a lot of these films that they've been putting out. They also have a physical media component to go along with them. So thank you, Shudder. The Clancy Brown movie that he's in, the anthology movie. Well, I just got the German media book of it. It's called Mortuary in Germany. This beautiful media book, it's called The Mortuary Collection, and it's on Shudder. And it's like, it's great, but how do you find out about this stuff unless you're looking for it? And his house was one of those things. I stumbled across the trailer. I'm like, what is this? I should know. I'm always looking for great horror stuff. And this movie came out of like nowhere. And unless I stumbled across it, it was analytics or something. I'm like, oh my God. And then I jumped right over and watched it. I'm like, dude, this is rad. This is great.
By the way, you just mentioned Clancy Brown, little callback. Clancy Brown does several voices, of course, in Invincible.
Yes.
I love Clancy Brown. I'm so glad you brought him up.
The Mortuary Collection, this movie is dope. And it's on Shudder, and I'm happy to have it on physical media.
All right, we move on. Next one up. Let's see here. Carlos writes, "Hey, John and Rob. I just got the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 movie collection in 4K. It's wrapped in a cool book binding with movie stills and much more. That's kind of cool. This is my first 4K set and my favorite comic book movies of all time. Can't wait to pop them in." Now, the only thing, Rob, Carlos brings up something interesting here. The only thing that I miss about physical media, because I haven't collected physical media in almost 10 years, but maybe a little bit less than that. But and I don't miss it at all, except for stuff like what Carlos is just describing. A set that comes with like exclusive images and some new things and things like that. Rob, you're constantly showing me like these physical collection packs of the boxes they come in and the special stuff. That stuff, I will say, you can never get with the digital streaming. You can never get that stuff. And that is the kind of stuff that I do miss. Like, otherwise, I'm perfectly happy being an all streaming guy, but I do miss that stuff. And you get some. What's one or two of the favorite things you have, Rob, for like the physical movies that you've got and the packaging that they came in?
Well, one of my favorites is the Die Hard collection that came in a Nakatomi Plaza building.
That's awesome.
And it's like, I mean, everybody, it's funny because it's the Fox Plaza. It's a real building. And it's a plastic, a model of the Nakatomi building. And at the base, you open up the base and that's where the discs are. And while I didn't get this, the thing that I missed the most, they made an alien head, John. Like an alien head from Alien, a big head. And the discs were in the head, like where inside the translucent alien dome, and they almost look like a spine, and that's where all the discs went. I don't know why I slept on that goodness, but I did. And there's all kinds of cool physical media things. I just got Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless in 4K, a new version of Breathless, the French film, the classic French film and it comes with vinyl of the soundtrack.
Wow.
And it's I'm constantly looking, and I feel like this is why I still love physical media so much, because if I love a movie, if it has a special place in my heart, I like packaging that says to me, these people cared as much about this movie as I do. So when they make something, especially if it's a classic film, somebody re-releases it in a cool box or something, I'm all for that. Like, look at this. This is the original Flash Gordon that came out in 4K. I mean, look at this shiny UV spot printed box. And this is a 5-disc set. It's got all kinds of swag in here. I mean, does this movie deserve this treatment? Yes. Yes, John.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. So I'm very happy to have it.
All right, let's keep moving on here. Next up, we've got Alan, who writes, hey, John and Rob, I saw Godzilla vs. Kong twice this past weekend, and I loved it. I wanted to check in and see how you are doing after seeing your boy Kong lose 2 out of 3 head-to-head fights and almost getting killed by Godzilla. Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, because I thought, first of all, round 1, which we see in the trailer, so it's no spoilers. We see plenty of it in the trailers. Round 1, you can't even count. That was in the water. Like, you can't even count that. Godzilla can breathe underwater, Kong can't. So that you get rid of that one. But anyway, the battle that we then also see in the trailers that takes place then in Hong Kong, that was great. The 2 rounds we saw in Hong Kong. And then, of course, when they fight Mechagodzilla, that was just delicious. That was just awesome. I was just grinning ear to ear like an idiot and just hooping and hollering and just the whole thing. And Rob, I got to say, and again, we won't go into any spoilers here, I loved the execution of Mechagodzilla. I really did. I thought this is kind of badass. Like, I would like the way even just the whole thing worked. But, and what he was able to do, I thought that's pretty damn cool. And I was just, I was eating that up, Rob. I was just totally eating it up. So it is what it is. What do you think?
Good. I have to tell you, the Mechagodzilla fight against Godzilla, there was real peril there. And Mechagodzilla, he came close to taking out the big G. I just would have liked to have seen more of an ebb and flow to that fight, where there was some strategy, a little bit of a rope-a-dope maybe, and extend. That fight I wanted to be more like the end of Rocky, where there's trading punches and somebody gets one over on the other guy, and I just wanted more. The fights felt a little bit too one note, but like you, I really did. A lot of people didn't like the Mechagodzilla design. I really did. And I felt this is a fearsome opponent. Mechagodzilla was truly scary. And I liked Mechagodzilla. I just wanted a little bit more out of the fight itself, but it was pretty dope, dude. I gotta say.
All right. Next up, we've got Marco Lani, who writes, one thing I felt Godzilla vs. Kong didn't have that 2014 and King of the Monsters was scale. Very rarely did you see these monsters from a human perspective, which is what I like imagining. As if I was there. I enjoyed it nonetheless. Can't wait to see it in IMAX. And you know what? You're not wrong about that in Marco. You're not wrong about that. There was a few close-up shots which we see in the trailers of like Godzilla of Kong with the little girl and things like that. But you're right. Some of the older, even that old one with, what was it, Matthew Broderick and Hank Azaria, that old Godzilla movie from like the...
Oh, you mean the 98 Godzilla?
The 98 Godzilla movie.
Oh,
like,
yeah, it was...
They did a really good job in that one of like really making you feel the awe of the scale. It might be the only really good thing about that movie, but it did do a good job of making you feel the awe of the scale. And they didn't do a lot of that in Godzilla vs. Kong. You're right. I was perfectly happy with what they gave us instead, but you're right. They didn't give us a lot of that. So it's a really good observation, Marco. All right, next up, Kenna writes, Hello, John and crew. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you can clarify something for me. On the surface, the 45-day release window sounds fair, as theaters make most of their money then, but don't the studios also take the greatest percentage then? Well, I mean, yes, it depends on the individual deal, because every movie has a unique exhibition deal. Like the distributor and the exhibitor is the movie theaters. For every single movie, they make a unique deal. They sign a contract for it about how big of a window, what the percentages are going to be, and blah, 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 blah. And yes, opening weekend, the studios take the largest percentage of the thing. So it's like, they don't take 1/3, although some movies do. But Rob, there was this one example. I remember talking to AMC about this. It's like, I remember when like the Phantom Menace came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how much of the box office the theaters got to keep for opening weekend of Phantom Menace?
Probably not as much as you would think.
0. They got to keep 0. None monies. Total number of monies is none.
But that's just from ticket sales. If they could, there were sales.
That was ticket sales. So, and basically, Lucasfilm at the time knew they had everybody over the barrel. This is the most anticipated movie release of all time at the time. The Phantom Menace was coming out. Star Wars is back. It's the most anticipated movie release of all time. And what were the theaters going to do? They had no choice. They had to accept those terms. 0%. Now, that's not normal. That is not a typical thing that happens. But you're right. The earliest in the run, the studios get the larger percentage. The longer the movie runs, more and more of the percentage starts to go back to the theaters, and it ends up averaging out about 1/3. I keep seeing people writing like 50% and whatever. Not true. It ends up being around 1/3. Anyway, but what you got to understand is it still balances out, Kenna, because fewer and fewer people are going to see movies after its second, third, fourth week. Fewer and fewer people are going that far out. So yes, at that point, the movie theaters are making like maybe 60%. They keep, depending, once you get into its fourth week, maybe it's making 60%, but it's making 60% of a very small number of people going to the movies. So it's still, because when you combine the shortened theatrical window with the fact that the trend of moviegoers has continuously over the last number of years moved to going earlier and earlier and earlier in its cycle, it actually does kind of balance itself out. And so it still works in everybody's favor at that point. Anyway, Rob, do you have anything to add to that or anything that I missed?
No, I think that's pretty accurate, and that's, people have to realize that's why refreshments in theaters are as expensive as they are, because that's how they're really making a substantial chunk of change. But yeah, as you and I know, I mean, anybody go to movie theaters, show movies, 5 days or 7 days a week, but 5 times a day sometimes. And if you go to a lot of those midday shows, most of the shows throughout the week are pretty empty. Sometimes movie theaters show a full auditorium. They'll show a movie and there's only 3 or 4 people inside that auditorium. And so imagine on the weekends, places are packed. And then during the week, not so much. So it all sort of, movie theaters have to compensate for that. And, that's how they make their money.
All right. Next up, we've got MD who writes, people not recognizing Sam in the club scene. Okay. We just had a big thing about this on our Falcon and Winter Soldier spoiler discussion, but people not recognizing Sam in the club scene in Falcon and Winter Soldier was not that absurd. It was absolutely ridiculously absurd. And we'll talk about that in a second. No one would expect an Avenger to be freely walking around with a conceited and escaped criminal, especially in Madripoor. This is actually a common psychological phenomenon that can see happen with famous people when they are seen somewhere they are not expected to be. This actually just happened when Rihanna attended a protest and people didn't realize it was her. The removal of appropriate context changes perception. All right, MD, let me go into this for a second, Rob. Let me go into this for a second. One of the dumbest things I have ever seen the MCU do, not the dumbest, but one of the dumbest things I've ever seen the MCU do, was what happened in Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 3, when Sam Wilson an Avenger, walked into this big crowded bar filled with criminals, all of whom recognized Winter Soldier, who apparently even government people thought was just a myth. But everyone's like, ooh, it's Winter Soldier. You know, walk in there and even stands face to face with this big major criminal, underworld criminal, face to face with them, and they didn't even recognize who he was, even when his name Sam got mentioned. Let's put this into context, Rob. Half of the population of the world had been killed. Half of the population of the world had been gone. That means every single person on the planet had a brother, mother, father, sister, girlfriend, wife, husband, friend, BFF, whatever, taken from them. 5 years later, they all got them back. Everybody got the most important people in the world to them back. And they knew who to thank. It was the Avengers. They've made that pretty clear in the MCU so far, that everybody knew it was the Avengers who got everybody back. In episode 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam is sitting casually in Tunisia, working on his little Red Wing thing, whatever it's called, doing some little electrical work. And some random dude in Tunisia walks up to him. Ah, Avenger, you saved my wife. I remember thinking, why does his wife look so much younger than him? Oh, that's right. She hasn't aged for 5 years and he has. But anyway, you saved my wife. Of course, somebody who saves your wife, you're going to know every single Avenger and all that kind of stuff. So he's in Tunisia and people are walking up to him. He's walking down the street in Philadelphia, some little kid. Hey, Black Falcon. You know, some little kid in there. He's sitting down in the bank and the guy's, I know you. He's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, Falcon the Avenger. He was just on nationally broadcast news retiring the Captain America shield and all this kind of stuff. And then the cops like, oh, yeah, you're Falcon. You know, all that kind of stuff. And you're telling me that this guy, one of the people responsible for the return of everybody's loved ones on the planet, who's recognized in cafes in Tunisia and kids on the street in Philadelphia and all this kind of stuff, yet he walks into a bar in Madripoor, who, by the way, he saved every person in that bar. He saved somebody's mother and sister and girlfriend and what, he saved them all. And they're right there in his face, and he's with Winter Soldier, and he's with Baron Zemo, and he's standing in front of a crime lord, and you're telling me nobody for a second suspected that's Sam Wilson, Falcon the Avenger. That, to me, was the stupidest, dumbest thing that they could have done. Like, I get if he was something, but remember, every single person in that bar got a brother back or a sister back or a girlfriend back or a husband back or a wife back, and they all knew who was responsible for bringing those people back. And ain't none of them, they recognized Winter Soldier, but ain't none of them recognized an Avenger? Bullshit. I call pure bullshit on that. It was the laziest writing they could have done in that show. And whatever, I accept it. It's a comic book movie. What is a comic book show? I accept it, move on. But it was dumb. It was totally dumb. I don't know, Rob, but how would you respond to what I'm saying there? I thought it was completely stupid.
Well, also remember, after Civil War, he was incarcerated.
Yeah.
You know, so he would have been on the news as well, I guess. But here's the way I saw it. You're not wrong. You know, you're not wrong. But I mean, I chose to look at it this way. When he walks in with Zemo and Winter Soldier's a notorious assassin that's been working. But I mean, I guess you're right. You know what I was going to say? Sometimes maybe the outfit he was wearing distracted, but you know what? Rolling in with Zemo was probably as well known as the Avengers are, because he did kill T'Chaka. You know, they did put him away, and he was like the Hannibal Lecter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe being in jail. I mean, these guys were rock stars walking in to Madripoor, which deals in information, and everybody from the criminal underworld would know exactly who they were. But maybe I would look at it this way. Maybe they thought, I mean, if Winter Soldier was with Zemo, maybe they thought Sam has gone rogue or something. If you want to be the smiling tiger, the laughing, whatever, if you want to be that guy, who are we to say no? Because you've been in jail. You've been incarcerated.
Yeah.
Maybe you've fallen from grace and you've taken on the mantle of this character. I don't know. That's kind of how I could get away with it. But other than that, it's pretty sketchy.
Yeah, but I just accept it. Yeah, it happened. But when somebody wants to bring up with me, well, it really wasn't that dumb. I'm going to go, wait, no, time out. It was that dumb. Somebody just wrote in the live chat, well, John, not everybody recognizes Tony Hawk when they see him in the street. If Tony Hawk had saved your mom's life, you would never not recognize Tony Hawk. If Tony Hawk brought your wife back from the dead, you would never not recognize Tony Hawk. So don't compare the situations. It's totally different. But anyway, but it's dumb, but I just like, whatever. And I just went on and just enjoyed the rest of the episode. But that was very, very lazy writing. I thought that was incredibly lazy writing on their part, but whatever is what it is. All right, let's move on. Next up, Brandon writes, hey, John, as you know, many Hollywood productions take place in Atlanta. Yes, they do. Recently, companies have been boycotting Georgia over their new laws restricting voting. Do you think Hollywood will follow suit and move productions out of Atlanta? I don't like to get into the politics of this stuff. If I'm trying to, so I'm not going to venture into the what do I think they should do. I'm not going to venture into that. If you're asking me, what do I think they will do? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Here's the reality, though, Rob. Lots of cities all over the world are constantly fighting to get Hollywood to bring their productions there, offering better and better tax credits and better incentives and better facilities and better shooting environments all over the Toronto, Vancouver, obviously, a lot of places in England and Australia, New Zealand, Louisiana has become a hotbed for a lot of shooting as well. Atlanta, then of course your stalwarts, Los Angeles and New York. I will say this. These Hollywood studios have a lot of options open to them. They have a lot of options. So I think they're going to, if they want to keep them there, it won't happen overnight because changing production locations and stuff like that, that's a long process. That takes time. But I wouldn't be surprised if 3 or 4 years from now, if the studios do say they have a real issue with stuff, 2-3 years from now, I'm not going to be surprised to hear, Boston is the new hotbed of shooting this stuff or more production moves back to here. I know, Rob, what do you think the studios are going to do?
Well, look, like you said, there is a lot of options. I mean, for instance, in Georgia, Marvel, Tyler Perry has built one of the most sophisticated and incredible production facility.
Yeah, he's an Atlanta guy, though. I believe, isn't he native Atlantean? I thought he was native Atlantean.
He might be, but his facility that he's built Tyler Perry is one of the most successful filmmakers and entrepreneurs Hollywood has ever seen. People don't talk about him as much as they probably should, but the facility that he's built is unbelievable. I haven't been there. I've just looked at it and studied it. It's amazing. But it really depends. I mean, I think Hollywood is very nimble now. There's all kinds of places they can go. And if they need to pull out somewhere, they can. They can go somewhere new. I mean, hell, there's new facilities being built all over the place. And whether you want to go, even in Australia, they've got great facilities. That's why Marvel is down there making Thor right now. They go to England. They're making Doctor Strange there. I mean, they're very nimble. Hollywood can go wherever and as more places offer them tax incentives,
Yep.
They can go wherever they need to go.
Yes, they can.
I don't think no one's got any loyalty to any particular place. What they do is if somebody has great infrastructure and they can house their crews and the local businesses are supportive, they go there. But you know what? Everyone likes Hollywood money, John. Everyone likes you can go to the Czech Republic. You can go to Bulgaria. They've got great facilities in Bulgaria and great crews there. You can go anywhere now.
All right. Next up, Ruben Wakefield writes, as far as the Monsterverse goes, where do we go from here? And how long can WB sustain themselves with their franchises, given their mixed reception to DC and Monsterverse films? Or will they have to rely on gimmicks? Zemo's got the moves. Get well, brother. I mean, that's a good question. Where does the Monsterverse go from here? Because Let's not lie, Rob. I'd said this before and I still stand by this. If they hadn't already been in production on Godzilla versus Kong by the time Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, I think they would have canceled Godzilla versus Kong. I really do. When you look at the box office results that they got and all that kind of stuff, they were having diminishing returns. This came out, clearly revitalized a lot of interest. Adam Wingard has done a really, really good job here. Still not thrilled with the human story in it, but whatever. I had a great time watching this movie. So where do they go from here? Can you just go back to Godzilla fighting Monster of the Week? Can you just go back to Kong fighting, Kong now lives in where I'm not going to give away, but Kong now lives where he lives. Is he just going to fight new monster threat of the week? Do you have Godzilla and Kong team up again? I mean, it's a good question, because you could say, oh, John, I was talking to a buddy of mine. John, you just don't understand. Like, there's a great pantheon. There's a great rogues gallery of monsters Godzilla can still fight. It's like, yeah, but is that going to be successful? We just had Kong fight King Ghidorah, and it didn't do well. So can you just say, well, now Godzilla, this new one is Godzilla versus this guy? I don't know. I want to see more. But it is a very good strategical question. Where do you go with it now? Because Rob, with this success, you got to make another one. But what is it you make? So Rob, you're an executive over there at Warner Brothers right now. And the CEO of AT&T calls you, says, Rob, what do we do with our next Monster Universe movie? What do you recommend that they do?
Bruh. Okay. As a Monsterverse fan, as a kaiju fan from way back, and don't laugh at me when I say this, aliens.
Man.
Now, I don't mean aliens like the alien xenomorph. I'm talking about aliens that come to Earth. Godzilla Final Wars had aliens come to Earth and take control of the monsters. Godzilla versus the Astro Monster, or as we know it, Godzilla versus Monster Zero. We find Planet X. Planet X is like, hey, we have a Ghidorah problem. Can we borrow Godzilla and Rodan so we can take care of our problem? But really what they do is they brainwash Godzilla and Rodan and send all three creatures in a bid to take over the Earth. If you want to go even further, The Mysterians, another great Japanese sci-fi film. I think they need to bring in an alien force. That's what I think. And they like, maybe the alien force, or maybe somebody else launches an invasion of the Earth from maybe even the Hollow Earth somehow. I don't know. Or better yet, if they don't want to do that, bro, Pacific Rim Monsterverse crossover. They're both legendary. Pacific Rim takes place in the future.
Yeah.
I think we find out that obviously the aliens that are launching these attacks against the Earth that come through the portal in the bottom of the Earth, combine it all together. And suddenly you're now in the future where you have Jaegers fighting alongside Earth kaiju against alien kaiju. So you have and these aliens show up in ships, man. So you've got alien ships, you've got flying monsters, you've got Jaegers, and it's an all-out free-for-all and a phantasmagoria of awesomeness. That's what I would do. Every kid in the world and every aging man-child like myself, it would be a dream come true. And make it the Independence Day meets Pacific Rim meets the Monsterverse. Maybe even throw in like Ultraman or Jet Jaguar, so you got superheroes too. I mean, who knows? But that's what you do. That's where I would go next.
I like it. I like the whole alien angle, because that gives you a reason to have Kong and Godzilla together again. You increase the scale a bit. So I like the suggestion. I'd go see that.
Plus,
I'd totally
it's part
go
of
see
the
that.
Rich history, history of the Toho films. I mean, aliens have been around, and I can only. But the thing is, they've all got to wear the same kind of outfits like they did in Godzilla versus Monster Zero, because they brought back those. Dude, I got to tell you, I went and saw Godzilla Final Wars, which was at the time the last Toho Godzilla movie where they brought in all the monsters, and they brought the cast from the movie over from Japan, and it was in the Chinese theater. John, it was like being in an MMA fight. Everybody in that theater was all people like me. We were screaming and yelling. And the Japanese female cast members were there in traditional, like kimono, really nice traditional Japanese dress. And I think they all thought we Americans were insane because, they were very happy to be here and they took it very seriously. And it was like being in a wrestling match because it's one fight after another. And even Godzilla fought CG Godzilla from the Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie from 98. And of course, the man in suit Godzilla pummels CG Godzilla, beats the heck out of him. We all went bananas. It was one of the greatest movie going experiences I ever had.
All right, Rob, we've kept you overtime here again. And I love your idea of where they should go with the Monsterverse. Rob, and again, congratulations, guys. Make sure you go and check out the trailer for Rob, the film that Rob worked on for years called Tango Shalom. Go and check that out. Also, a show he helped work on called Dota is now, the animated series is now on Netflix. Rob, in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, Rob, thanks a lot for being here today, dude. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, and have a good one, my friend.
Aliens.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Listen, guys, we still have time here, so we're going to keep rolling through your questions as we go. So let's keep on rolling right now. We're going to keep going with Yang Nish, who writes, it's good to see that life is getting closer to being normal, seeing the release of new trailers and excitement of going back to the theaters. Side note, WandaVision was great. Didn't think I would end up watching it 4 times already. Wow, unexpected hit for me. And I think WandaVision caught a lot of us by surprise, not just because it was so good and so high quality, but it just was a very different type of show than we were expecting. And I think that is what really caught us out of left field. It's like we were not expecting it to be like this. I really had a wonderful time with it, and it just kept us on our toes the whole way through. Good. Thanks for sending that in, Yang. All right, Willow writes, so have you gotten any superpowers yet as a result of the vaccine? Which superpowers are you hoping to develop the most? So I don't know if for those of you who may not follow me on Instagram, and y'all should follow me on Instagram, just right there, at John Campea. You can see it listed right here, at John Campea. Follow me on Instagram. I put up an Instagram post when I went in to get my first shot of the Pfizer vaccine. And I wrote, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be really disappointed if I don't start developing superpowers in the first 24 hours. But no, have not developed any superpowers. And, in the classic question of if you got to have a superpower, which one would it be? I often go back and forth between super strength and this other one. Lately, I've been on this one, flight. I think if I could pick any one only superpower, it would probably be flight. I don't know why, but there's something about that. I just think it would be awesome. Whether it's because of the Man of Steel first flight scene or watching Invincible and seeing the Invincible's first type of flights. I don't know. I would probably choose flight as the superpower that I would get, Willow. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, Godzilla vs. Kong box office pretty much leaves Warner Brothers with no excuse not to make Dune an exclusive theatrical release. Just imagine how much better it could have been if people didn't just watch it at home. Listen, I'll tell you what, I am not calling it by any stretch of the imagination, so don't misquote me, but I do think there's a very good chance that Dune does go exclusive theatrical. I mean, it's obvious it's what Legendary wants. They're the company that put up most of the money to make the movie. They want it to be exclusively theatrical. I think Warner Brothers, after seeing this and realizing how much money they may have missed out on with Godzilla vs. Kong, I think they might be having those conversations. So again, I'm not calling it. I'm not saying that Dune will be exclusively theatrical. I'm not calling it at all, but I do think there's a good chance. So we'll see how that goes, Ryan. All right, next up. Let's see. The Wakandan Forever writes, okay, John, I need WrestleMania. I watch it every year and I'm going to sign up for Peacock. I will buy the premium plan because I hate ads. Since I will have it anyway, what shows or movies do you recommend? Thanks. Have a good one. Wakanda Forever. Well, listen, I'll be honest with you. I am on Peacock a lot, honestly, and I still hate that damn name, but I am on the streaming service Peacock quite a bit. When I am on it, I am usually watching one of 3 things. Or one of 4 things. I'm either watching most of the time Parks and Recreation or The Office. Other than that, what I've been watching on it is I've been using Peacock to watch Debris, which I'm not thrilled with Debris, but I'm going to give it a couple more episodes. And Blacklist. I usually watch, there are other ways to watch Blacklist, but I like watching it on Peacock. Those are the things I watch mostly when I use the Peacock service. But yeah, if you are a wrestling fan, the addition of the WWE Network moving exclusively over to Peacock is a very, very big deal. So that's something to keep your eye on. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have, what's next? It's Cam K, who writes, 1 of 5. All right, let's buckle in. Let's talk about Loki. I am more hyped for this project than any of the others. However, the way time travel works in the MCU is basically means that when the Avengers went back in time, that alone created a branch timeline. They never went into their own past. That would fundamentally change the main timeline's future, and Hulk already stated that's not how time travel works in this universe. If it did, so many things would be different with the main timeline, which there are no differences. Everything that happened. So with that being said, this Loki never put the main timeline in danger when he disappeared with the Tesseract. He did, however, put that branched one he came from in danger, supposedly. I hope that's what they meant in the new trailer, because whatever timeline Loki damaged is inconsequential to the one we are all so familiar with. Up until Falcon and the Winter Soldier, unless him doing what he did somehow put all timelines in some sort of danger. Either way, I'm extremely hyped for the show and even more hyped for the spoiler discussion. Love your content, John. All right, thanks a lot for that, Cam. And yeah, listen, my most anticipated series for Disney Plus as far as Marvel goes has been Falcon and the Winter Soldier. My second most anticipated series, I think now, is easily Loki. I thought that trailer was fantastic. Now look, even the two writers of Infinity War and Endgame, McFeely and I can't remember the other guy, they have been very open and honest about some of the problems with Infinity War and Endgame, particularly some of their logic issues. And they have said on multiple occasions, yeah, you know, the way we didn't completely figure out in a real logical way how our timeline stuff really actually works. They've said this openly. They've just like right out said it. So how they're going to take that and apply it to what's going on in Loki, how that concept is going to be taken and applied, I guess I can take this off now, how that's going to be taken and applied to something like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. How they're going to do that, I'm not sure. I am curious to see. What I am pretty convinced of, though, is that to give the feeling of weight, stakes, and consequences, they're going to say our main what we understand to be the MCU is going to be in danger. Now, I don't know that. Nobody's told me that. But I think to give the audience a sense of stakes, they're going to say the reality that we are most familiar with, the timeline we are most familiar with, that is also going to be in danger. Now, I don't know that for sure. I'm just taking a guess, but we'll see how they go with that. Look, as much as I love Endgame, and you guys have heard me talk about Endgame many times, you know I love Endgame. I have a great time with Endgame. It was such a great, fantastic climax to the 20-plus movies, 11-plus year build-up of the MCU, and it was such a fantastic experience. But too many fans of things are afraid to point out, you know, the problems of the things they love. Too many fans of things are afraid to point out the problems with the things that they love. And I love Endgame, but I will often bring up there are a few issues with Endgame. You can acknowledge the issues with the things you love and still love them. You can acknowledge those issues and still love them. But there are some issues with that. And the way they handled and dealt with the consequences of time travel is one of those kind of problems. How they're going to navigate that moving forward is going to be really interesting. I think I'm more fascinated than anything else. I am more fascinated than anything else to see how they are going to navigate that whole timeline issue with Loki. And hopefully they'll kind of sort it out and make a little bit more sense and set up kind of understandable parameters and rules about how it actually works in this universe, because then that can actually make it easier for other storytellers to kind of capitalize on it. But we'll see how it goes. All I know is that I thought the trailer for Loki was great. I'm very excited. I love Tom Hiddleston as the character, and I'm very, very, like you, Cam, I'm very excited to see this series. And we only have to wait just a little over 2 months. Loki starts in just a little over 2 months. Very, very excited for that. Thanks for writing that in, Cam. All right, next up, Ryan Lohner writes, I went to Rome a while back, and the high point was our guide taking us to the middle of the Colosseum and saying, so imagine all these stands are full of people shouting for your blood, and then Maximus says, whatever comes out of these gates. That's a good tour guide, man. We, of course, just put up our Movies in 20 Gladiator video. That is now up on the front page of the YouTube channel. If you want to, guys, go check that out. Go check it out. The movie's 21 years old. It is one of my favorite films. And yes, listen, I'm Italian. Some of you may not know, my actual name is Giovanni. My dad is Pasquale. My dad literally came over, very stereotypically, my dad came over on the boat, as did my grandfather, and they brought our whole Italian tribe over. My grandfather, Giovanni, who I'm named after. His brothers, Carlo, Vincenzo, Romolo, Sagarlo, they all came over as well. My dad and his siblings, Paul, Pino, Lenora, Susan, all of them came over. All that kind of stuff, all came over on the boat. And I've never been to Italy. I've never been. My wife has been to Italy on a couple of occasions. The Italian one, I've never been. So I would love, Ryan, to go there and be in that Colosseum. Now, Protoss X writes in the live chat, John, can you make some pasta or something? That is extremely, that's a really offensively stereotypical. That's an offensively huge stereotype thing to say about an Italian Protoss. But yeah, I do love making pasta. I just totally justified your stereotype. Yes, I make a lot of pasta. I totally do. Anyway, I even make pasta from scratch. Yeah. I not even going and getting the noodles. I can literally get out the flour and the egg. I actually make pasta from scratch. And it's delicious pasta because I'm Italian. And that's what Italians do. John Campea, bringing out the stereotypes of Italians all the time. All right, next up. Where are we going here? That was Ryan. Anonymous writes, not including certain details doesn't mean the opposite is true. Yeah, Zemo wasn't explicitly portrayed as rich in Civil War, but when exactly did they make out that he was poor or lacking funds? Not explicitly saying he's rich is not the same as saying he isn't. Again, that was kind of one of the things. And listen, I'm totally fine with it. One of the things that we pointed out is that Zemo basically being Sokovian Bruce Wayne with his own Alfred. Did anybody else notice that? That basically Zemo is Sokovian Bruce Wayne, and he even has his own Alfred on the plane. But that is an implied retcon. You're right. It's not like they totally went back on things, but nothing that happened in Winter Soldier ever suggested, even the way Zemo went about doing what he was doing in Civil War, I should say, ever suggested that he had access to funds or that he was a person of means. Like nothing that really happened in that, did it ever look like, or was it ever implied that he had any sort of means? The vehicles he was driving, the rooms he was staying in, the fact that a lot of his stuff that he had to do was being done alone. That was all kind of implied. And now all of a sudden we come to Falcon Winter Soldier. I'm basically royalty. I come from all this money, blah, blah, blah. But it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It is a change of direction from kind of the way they portrayed him in one movie. It is definitely a change in direction. Is it a big issue and a big problem? No. And by the way, I have no problem with the fact that he's basically Sokovian Bruce Wayne with his own Alfred. And by the way, I love his Alfred. I thought his Alfred was hilarious. So I have no problem with it. It's just acknowledging, look, let's be honest. When you watch Civil War, they clearly do imply that he is of a certain socioeconomic kind of level. And then in this, it's completely different. But it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. But we should acknowledge that they clearly did make a little bit of a change in direction. That's all. That's all I'm saying. All right, next up. King of Madripoor writes, Hey, John, I just want to say there is a thing can't remember the name of it, but it's basically when people don't recognize someone because they're not where they're expected to be. Example, it happened with JFK when he took a cigarette break at a function and people didn't recognize him basically because no one expected that the president of the United States just to be standing there smoking. Anyway, yeah, it was a pinch of salt writing, and they did make a point of saying how much Sam looked like a guy. I go, that was it was weak. It was completely weak. Again, just 3 months earlier, this is one of the guys who brought back all those people's most important persons in their lives. Brought back all their mothers, their sisters, their sons, their daughters. And that guy is sitting there right in front of your face and you don't even remotely recognize him. When an average dude walking by a cafe in Tunisia stops and goes, Avenger! When a little kid on the streets in Philadelphia, Black Falcon. Sorry, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Lazy writing. I'm really enjoying the show. Don't get me wrong, but it's totally lazy writing. Anyway, the Farting Monkeys writes, hey, John, been a fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. With all the hashtags going around, the time has come for you to make a decision. Restore the Snyderverse or continue the Monsterverse. If you can only have one, which is it? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, the only one is relevant, which is the Monsterverse. And they're definitely going to... There's no need for the hashtag continue the Monsterverse. There's no need for it. They're going to move forward. They're going to do another one. This one is just too successful. So I mean, I get it, but there's just no need for the continue the Monsterverse thing because they're definitely going to move forward and do another one. I mean, yeah, the other ones were failing. They were, but this thing has come out with such success. I let's put it this way. I'll be very surprised just from a business point of view if they don't do another one at this point. And I love Rob's idea about introduce aliens, have Kong and Godzilla fight aliens with a couple of other kaiju on Earth. Make that happen. I think that'll work. All right. Roseanne's Worn Bikini writes, in my feeble mind, I find it very satisfying parallel between Falcon and Winter Soldier working with Zemo and as Kirk and Spock did with Khan, villain with their own plans. Yeah, listen, we were talking about that on the open spoiler discussion too, is that, yeah, listen, narratively speaking, when you understand what is the core motivation of Zemo, him agreeing to work with Sam and Bucky because of what it is they're trying to accomplish, narratively that fits. That makes sense. Because the goals that Bucky and Sam have are in alignment with what the goals and what the motivations of Zemo would be. However, I also believe that, like Khan, Zemo has another agenda. I think he's totally in alignment with Sam and Bucky, and I think he wants to help them accomplish their goal because he doesn't want super soldiers running around out there. But I also believe we're going to be revealed to another agenda, another priority that maybe we as the audience don't know about yet that Zemo has. But I think it will become. By the way, somebody brought up that maybe this thing will end with Zemo being the new power broker. That's possible too. So I don't know, a lot of different possibilities there with that. All right, next up. MD writes, people who want raw Bucky keep forgetting that a condition of his pardon is that he doesn't hurt anyone. He missed one therapy session and got thrown in jail. He can't go full Winter Soldier mode whenever he likes. The club fight will be a problem too. See, the way I think they're dealing with that, MD, I think the way they've dealt with that is the fact that they have, go back to the other episode, right? The therapist basically signed off on Bucky going out and working with Sam. Now, Bucky is not supposed to be doing anything violent. Bucky is not supposed to be getting involved. But in that one scene, the therapist who's basically in charge of Bucky, by having that quick impromptu therapy session with the two of them, she essentially gave her sign off to Bucky going out and working with Sam. She knows if she's going out into the field and working with Sam that he's going to have to get involved in probably some violent situations, right? So I personally think, and maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. I might be interpreting it wrong. But I personally feel like that was basically him being given the go-ahead that he can go out there. He can get into a bar fight if it's for the mission and within the realm of working this mission with Sam Wilson. I feel like the therapist knows about it. She gave her consent to it and let him go out and do it. So I think he's covered. That doesn't mean he can just go around and start murdering people, but I think they were kind of basically laying it out that he's for now allowed to go and try to help. He's allowed to go and try to help. And that means you got to bust some heads. And you go and bust some heads, Winter Soldier. All right, next up. Orange Hand writes, one issue I have with some streaming services is when certain movies, example, Pacific Rim on Netflix, only have translations for non-English dialogue when subtitles are turned on for the whole movie, while in theaters and physical media, this isn't the case. Let me try that again. Only have translations for non-English dialogue when subtitles are turned on for the whole movie, while in theaters and physical media. So are you saying that there are some Netflix movies that don't offer you an option to have English subtitles on? I don't know that I've ever you guys in the live chat, have you ever experienced that? Have you had a movie on Netflix where it did not give you an option for an English subtitles to be on? I personally have never had that experience. AA Ron saying no. Issa is saying they've never had that, but Grimstar says yes, they have had that experience. I have never had that one. I've never had that one. Yeah, I've never had that experience personally. That would be a very odd decision. Like, why would you not want to have that? Why would you purposefully not have a feature like that when every other movie, even on Netflix, does? I'd be very interested to ask a Netflix executive about that, because honestly, like I said, I've never come across that. Most people in the live chat are saying they haven't. I'm seeing a couple people saying that they have. So I'm not sure. I'm going to keep my eyes open for that. I've never even considered it before, Orange Hand. I'm going to keep my eyes open for that moving forward. All right. Let's see. Next up. Please don't yell at me writes. FYI, Zemo calling Smiling Tiger an African rake. He's a notorious criminal, not rapper. Also, Easter egg. He's villain in comics. Yeah, that's right. I did know he was a villain in the comics. He's not American or famous. Not sure if you misunderstood or rewatched that part. I agree with you, just not your explanation. Well, I mean, whatever. Again, the bottom line for me is that it is utterly preposterous that an entire club and a crime lord would not recognize the biggest rock star in the world at the moment, an Avenger, who just saved your loved ones' lives and brought your loved ones back, and nobody to me, it's utterly preposterous, and every other bit of dancing around they did at it was totally ridiculous to me. Anyway, let's see. Brandon writes, toxicity is back. Wyatt Russell, who plays John Walker brilliantly in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is getting death threats from a small part of the MCU fandom due to the nature of his character. At some point, do these idiots need to be held accountable for their behavior? Yeah, look, we kind of touched on this the other day. We just touched on this the other day. The notion, like, we all know everybody's stupid. I mean, we all, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, are stupid at times. We all are. We all do dumb things. There are some people that are especially stupid, that especially come from the very, very shallow end of the gene pool, that carry with them the type of stupidity that makes you marvel when they're able to understand the difference between the stop walking sign and the walk sign. It's like, wow, you figured that out. Good for you. Like, they're that stupid. People going after an actor online and attacking an actor online because he's playing a character that they're mad at. I mean, honestly, I think maybe these people should be given involuntary vasectomies. They shouldn't be allowed to breed. Like, that kind of dumb shouldn't even be allowed to breed in our society. It's just inexplicably stupid. I just don't know what to say about people like that. I mean, I really don't. And it really just comes down to how do you even remember to breathe? Do you remember to blink your eyes? Like, it's just, you have to be so incredibly dumb to do something like that. It's preposterous. Anyway, it's just mind-boggling to me. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Anybody can be that dumb. It's just really crazy. Anyway, next up, Power is Power writes, I don't think Steve is literally on the moon, but moon could be an acronym for a facility or place where Steve could continue helping people, just not physically. He seemed to do well leading group therapy, always does what he can, even without the serum. Yeah, of course, I thought there was, I still think there is the slightest possibility that, because remember the joke the guy made in episode 1? Hey, so is Captain America really on the moon? Remember that joke? I wouldn't be shocked at all if at some point in this series, Sam and Bucky goes, only Cap would know that. We got to go see Steve. And they literally have to get on a space shuttle and fly to the moon and see Steve. I just think that would be funny. I think there's like a 3% chance. 3% chance of that happening. I thought it would be funny. All right. Next up. Let's see. You had one job, writes. Okay. So the prisons in the MCU hire the same security details as Arkham Asylum. Okay. Well, moving on then. I know, right? It's like, really? Jails can't keep people prisoner? Like, I get it. Like, if they eventually do bring back Abomination, which there are reports saying that Abomination's coming back. Hey, just one little flutter in the power means Abomination could break that whole place apart and break out. I get it. But yeah, whenever they need a prisoner to break out, it's always seems so fairly easy that they do. You're not wrong about that. You had one job. You're not wrong about that. All right. Final question of the day comes to us from Power is Power, who writes, LMAO, John, after your episode 3 open spoiler discussion, I really, really want a 2-minute post-credit scene and the finale of people mistaking the really Smile Tiger for Sam Wilson. That would be pretty funny if they did. If they did that, I would have to tip my cap to them and say, well played, sir. Well played. We'll see where they go. All right, guys, listen. There are more questions still to come from Mischievous Gremlin, Greg Scott Bailey, and many others. We almost got through all the questions here today, but do not worry, guys. I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later today, and we will get all completely caught up on all the questions that have been sent in through today's show. So check back a little bit later for that companion video, and you will see your question. If you submitted one, you will see your question answered. All right, guys. That will do it for me today for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory and goodness to the show. Thank you to all of you guys for taking time out of your day to spend some time here. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in those live questions because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did so. And all of us here on the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Don't forget, guys, to do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.